Hello and welcome to another episode of Attack the Baseline, a WNBA podcast where each episode we attack our baseline knowledge of the WNBA. We're your hosts, John and Kristen Barber, and here we are on this lovely Memorial Day recording a podcast. Kristen, how's it going?
Going great. We had a good Memorial Day weekend, hanging with our friends, and it was beautiful out. Now we are chilling in the thunderstorms and the rain today, but it's nice, good vibes, good comfy vibes.
Yeah, cozy indoor vibes,
Yeah.
podcast beats to chill to. If you hear a little bit of rain, it's because in our little recording studio, we're right by the window and it's kind of pouring, but it's nice.
Yeah.
So, another week of the W gone by. Watch more games. We followed this week as Phoenix Mercury fans later on.
X Factor.
We were X Factor members. You'll find out later in our interview with our friend Kris all about the Phoenix Mercury if you're unfamiliar. That was a lot of fun. They played some good games. We got to see, a bunch of new teams that we still haven't seen. Like we got to see the Aces for the first time. We got to see the Mercury really for the first time. And yeah, it's been another great week. News-wise, a little on the later side.
Yeah, not much went on this week. Really, the biggest thing I would say was the press conference in Toronto officially announcing the new team. I watched that as I was walking to work one day this week. Had it up on my phone.
We got to see our boy Kyle Lowry talk about how much it means to Toronto to have a team. That's cool, even though he's a Raptor, but he's a Philly guy, so...
He's not a Raptor now.
He's not a Raptor now, but he's like a long term. He's gonna have his jersey in the rafters in Toronto, most likely.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, I know it's fine, but
So he can help support their team in Toronto and then come support our team in Philly.
yes, we know our Canadian fans, our fans of the Raptors, love Kyle Lowry. Philadelphians, now that he's played for the Sixers, love Kyle Lowry. So it's cool that he's there boosting this sound for this new Toronto team. And also, all the teams voted, and who's the
NBA team
all the NBA teams
voted. Yeah.
for the inclusion of Toronto for the W. I don't know why.
That kind of pisses
Yeah,
me
why
off.
did they? Who cares? Whatever. It's because there's the affiliation, but like, who's that one bozo team? Petty. New York.
You're not explaining this well.
Look, all 30 teams in the NBA have to vote
Yeah.
to acknowledge the new existence of this WNBA team. And they vote yes or no, and it was 29-1 because the New York Knicks are petty, and they said, nah,
No, we hate the W.
bozos.
But whatever, they suck. It doesn't matter.
Right, and now Toronto's officially in the WNBA ecosystem.
Yes, so
coming
we'll-
2026.
We'll look out for more news about that. Who knows when like a name or, any branding will be released. Not for a while, but it's
No,
still,
it'll probably be a long time.
it's still exciting to, be on our toes for that.
Yeah. And now, and things are really heating up for Golden State. Now they have their team names, they have their colors, they've got all their, situations figured out, except how they're going to do this expansion draft, which is still weird that they don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
But we'll get there.
I will say, being part of the X Factor this week, I loved watching the Mercury. I think I got, a new appreciation of Diana Taurasi. Really seeing Kalia Copper for the first time was so much fun. But so I would consider rooting for the Mercury as my team. However, the X Factor, all I can think of is season 3 of Big Brother when it was the X Factor theme and all their exes came in. I just can't. That's literally all I think of.
She can't separate reality TV from hoops.
Sorry if you have no idea what Big Brother is or that season, but it's all I can think of when I hear the X Factor.
Yeah, take
So
a look.
I don't know if I can be part of that.
I really thought you were going to say Simon Cowell or Howie Mandel or Sofia Vergara. No, not that X Factor.
But
Maybe
that doesn't
One
have,
Direction.
That doesn't have any negative connotations in my mind.
No. I mean, look, we if without the X factor of Big Brother, we wouldn't have June's song. So June, if you're listening,
Oh, yeah.
thank you for all your contributions to reality TV show sphere. But anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking W.
Great.
Real quick, before we get into our player honorable mentions of the week, I would like to, acknowledge a few heat checks. It was pointed out to me that Alyssa Thomas, I believe I mentioned that she won an MVP. She never won an MVP. Oh. She's been in MVP conversations. She's a multi-time All-Star. Great player. Hasn't done the MVP thing. So sorry to boost you a little bit there, AT, but still definitely a great player.
Well, she did have a little bit of a rough patch this week by
pushing
Angel Reese over.
Yeah.
They were playing the Sky, and she what?
Clothesline. It was like they're both facing the basket. AT knew that Angel was behind her.
And she pushed her over.
It almost looked like she was choke slammed her a little bit.
Kinda.
Palm the face down on the ground.
Her neck, really.
Yeah.
So she got ejected.
Yes. yeah. Alyssa got ejected.
Yeah, Alyssa.
And Angel acknowledged it, and she said, she's taking her lumps.
Yeah, I think it was fine. It ultimately was okay. Nobody has too hard feelings.
No. But still, it's interesting to see seasoned veteran get into it with the rookie. That's your welcome to the W initiation type of thing. And the other one I want to point out is so last week I talked about the implications of the draft. There is another big thing at play. Given that we were following the Mercury, I missed the fact that the Mercury and the Liberty have a pick swap. So the Liberty will get the better of the two picks. So the Liberty will end up likely with the Mercury pick because you expect the Liberty to do better than the Mercury.
That's wild to me.
It is wild, but I mean, as we learned, the Mercury traded for a lot of talent, so picks get swapped.
Mm-hmm. I don't think they'll be terrible this year.
No, the Mercury?
Yeah.
No, they're going to be at least top half.
Yeah, for sure.
And did you know this? When I was looking so thank you to listener Lincoln, who pointed out the website Across the Timeline, which is a really good website that just tracks all of these draft picks. And I said on the pod, I can't find any draft information, and it's all here. Okay. I'm like, did you know that the Aces lost their pick?
This upcoming year? No.
Yes,
why?
So they forfeited their first round pick in 2025 for violating league rules regarding impermissible player benefits and suspended head coach Becky Hammon for 2 games without pay for violating league and team respect in the workplace policies.
Oh.
This was back in 2023. So this was almost a year ago that the press release came out. So that was interesting to find. I was like, oh, shoot. And kind of interesting that, last week we have this situation where the Aces are being investigated for paying their players through the city, and it's all this weird, exchange of money.
No, but this is interesting. It's talking about, I guess there was a complaint by Derica Hamby, who recently gave birth and was, I guess, out for pregnancy, and she was coming back, and they were giving her a contract, and there was some misconduct.
Mm-hmm. Yes, by Becky.
By the Aces and by Becky in regards to her new contract and the free agency period.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then Engelbert said, nope, we're going to take that. It's so interesting because stuff like this happens in, the other professional men's leagues, but I feel like you're never seeing first round picks forfeited.
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal.
That's a huge deal. That's a huge, huge deal.
Usually they just fine you.
And obviously the Aces could just win the championship and it doesn't really matter. You don't need a first round pick if you're going to pick last.
They wouldn't have had that good of a pick anyway.
Right. But still, it's something to track. So there's a little news.
Well, I will mention the Aces one of the Aces picks from this year, Kate Martin. She had a great game against the Fever this week. So it was really cute seeing her and Caitlin Clark seeing each other before the game. They hugged each other. They were guarding each other for a lot of the game when they were playing. And I think it really, the couple games that I had, couple clips and games I'd seen of Kate, she was missing a lot of threes. It seemed like she was kind of struggling a little bit. And I was getting really worried for her because she's on this amazing Aces team. She is coming off the bench, obviously, but still she needs to be good, or else, they're going to not keep her around.
Right.
But I think she had a great game against the Fever. She had 12 points. She made a couple great threes, and she was really good at guarding Caitlin. So I loved seeing them two play together.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
Play against each other.
Right. Not together anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we're learning that it's really tough in this league to be a second or a third round pick and have sustained success, sticking with a team, because there's only 144 jobs total, because it's 12 player maximum.
Yeah,
so,
but not even, because so many teams only have 11 players.
Yep, or 9.
They don't have 9.
They don't have 9.
They just have hurt players.
The other day I thought the Dallas Wings only had 9 players. They don't, but still.
Okay.
But anyway, why don't we move on and talk about our player honorable mentions of the week, if you have any?
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly talk about Kelsey Plum. She is the coolest person I've ever seen.
Kelsey's so cool.
She just radiates cool. I don't know. I feel like I could just never ever speak to her or be her friend, because she's just so cool. Just the way she carries herself, her outfits coming into the games are sweet.
Yeah.
She when she's on the court, she has so much energy. She's just throwing herself around all over the place. One game we watched, she jumped to try to get a ball to stay in bounds, and she jumped over the chairs and landed in the stands, and her coaches had to grab her. She's just she's doing backwards somersaults all over the court. So she's so cool. Her stats at the moment are not amazing, but she's currently in 8th place of average points per game at 20.8. But she is leading in average 3-pointers made per game at 4. So she can make her threes, even though it seems like she kind of shoots a lot.
Can you check? Is she top of the league in attempted threes? Because
I'm sure she has to be.
She chucks, and it's awesome.
How do I find that out?
Just go back to the website. Yeah,
so she's definitely attempting the most threes per game at 10.3, and then is making 4 of them. So her percentage isn't great.
No, 39% is fine, good.
Yeah.
But yeah, she could stand to make maybe one more.
Right. Well, we're still getting into it. She's still leading the league in threes made per game, so I'm loving it. And she has recently been in the news for other reasons. She was married to Darren Waller, who is a tight end for the Giants. And they're getting divorced, so screw that guy.
Big time. Yeah, it says she's devastated.
Yeah, what the hell's wrong with her?
How are you going to do that to Kelsey?
She's so cool. How do you want to not be married to her? I don't know.
But anyway.
Yeah.
That's a Kelsey Plum watch. Didn't realize she was only 29.
Oh, yeah, she's young.
Young.
Oh, and wait, I did see... I think she was leading... I think she led the NCAA in women's points total.
Oh, all-time point leader?
But then Caitlin passed her.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes, that's true. That's absolutely true. I remember hearing that on the broadcast.
Yeah.
So, she's number 2 all-time. Not too shabby, Kelsey. I want to point out a player that any of you listeners already know, Cam Brink, because I noticed something in a box score on Tuesday when the Sparks played the Mystics. I was like, That's an interesting box score by Cam. She had 4 points, 8 boards, 3 assists, 3 steals, and 4 blocks. And I said, let's 5x5 watch. You know what a 5x5 is?
No.
So 5x5 is when you have 5 of each of the 5 stats.
Okay.
So 5 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, 5 blocks, 5 steals.
Okay.
Doesn't happen hardly ever.
Yeah, it seems like it because, well...
It's hard to get 5 blocks. It's hard to get 5 steals.
Oh, yeah, that would be really hard.
Like, the triple-doubles, and in the W, triple-doubles are pretty rare. Or actually very rare. Mm-hmm. But in the NBA, it's less rare.
It also seems like potentially assists are not as common.
Right.
Because something happened this week where Natasha Cloud became only the 10th player in the W to have a double-double with assists.
I think in back-to-back games. I think it was 2 games in a row with points, assists, double-double. But that's still crazy that's if that's the case.
Yeah.
To be the 10th if it was the 10th person all-time that's ever happened, that's crazy. But if it's the 10th person all-time to have it back-to-back games, I maybe get it. But yeah, it just doesn't sound like there's many players that are getting 10 assists a game.
Right.
So getting half of that. And if you're a defensive specialist that's blocking or stealing the ball, you're probably not, getting those assists. So yeah, that means you're literally able to do all the things. Mm-hmm. So the fact that Cam had that stat line made me think, like, has a 5x5 ever happened in the W? Mm-hmm. And it's only happened 1 time. Oh. And it was Candace Parker.
Of course.
In her rookie/MVP season.
Oh.
So, shocking. Hasn't happened since 2008. But I was like, that is an interesting wrinkle. And something that I will keep an eye on, because Cam is averaging 3.2 blocks per game, leading the league by far. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, getting those 5 blocks is tough. But when you're also an offensive threat like Cam that can do other stuff, I was like, maybe we have a chance to see another 5x5.
Wow.
So
I think she'll do it.
Something to follow.
I definitely could see that she'll do it. She has such an easy time blocking those. She basically touches the rim when her hands are up.
And she, as a Sparks player, she doesn't have to play for a ton. She can just play hard, mm-hmm. and they don't expect her to win.
That's
right now.
True. No pressure.
So it's nice.
Yeah, just get your steals, get your blocks.
But yeah, so that's a little Cam Brink watch. And then I did want to shout out one other player before we get into our Mercury interview. The league's leading scorer, Arike Ogunbowale, who I took in the first round of our fantasy draft. It's paying dividends because she dropped 40 the other night against the Mercury. We watched it. We saw it. And I just thought it was interesting because currently, the Wings have only played 4 games. So it's tough to expect that this could be sustained. But the way I watch Arike play, Dallas just wants to let her go. Like, let her shoot a ton. Let her run the offense basically on every play. She's always touching the ball every play. And it makes you think, like, okay, so the way that Jewel Lloyd led the league in points last year was because Seattle was just like, we're just going to let Jewel chuck because we got no better option. Mm-hmm. Dallas could be doing a similar thing with Arike. But Arike currently is averaging 31 points per game. And it was noted in a broadcast this week that there's never been a 30-point per game scorer over an entire season mm-hmm. in WNBA history. And I went back and I looked at what the high water mark was mm-hmm. for most points per game in a season. And I found that it was in 2006 mm-hmm. by Diana Taurasi, mm-hmm. who we just watched a lot of this week. Mm-hmm. She scored 25.3 points per game. So 25
That's the highest?
Is the watermark.
Oh,
and I'm like, Jewel last year had 24 and change. So it is possible that we could see a new points per game scorer. And in the NBA, the leading scorer is usually like high, like, low 30s. Like Joelle scored a crazy amount in his MVP season, 33 or 34. Like, it sounds like it's difficult, but not impossible. And they only play 40 minutes instead of 48 minutes. So there's less opportunity in the W to score because there's less time. But something to pay attention to would be, can Arike set the new high watermark? Can she break 30 points per game?
Wow.
Something I'm going to be tracking.
Okay, so we're on Cam watch for a 5x5.
5x5 watch.
We're on Arike watch.
For
more than 25 points per game.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Sweet.
And we're on Kelsey Plum watch because she's cool.
Just watch her.
Just watch her. That's our player honorable mentions. That's the news. That's the heat checks. We're going to pass it over to our interview with Kris to learn a little bit more about the Phoenix Mercury. So enjoy that. So here we are, joined with friend of the pod, Kris. He's a huge Phoenix Mercury fan. I see him talk a lot about the Phoenix Mercury online, and we had to bring in a ringer to tell us all about the team. So Kris, welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I've been enjoying the pod so far, so it's an honor to join you guys.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you. Excited to know a Phoenix Mercury fan because, there's so far. We start with Seattle week 1, and then we're going to Phoenix. I feel like the West Coast teams, we got a lot of fans out there, and I'm surprised because we're East Coasters. It's nice to know, and you being an East Coaster yourself, it's nice to know that you're over here and you're willing to talk to us about it. So we want to know, because you, like us, you're in Delaware, we're in Philly. Why are you a Mercury fan? Like, why Phoenix?
Yeah, so growing up, I know a lot of people are getting newly acclimated to the WNBA and women's basketball players. I grew up in a basketball family, so if you go around West Philly or really most of the city, you talk to people that are in their 50s and their 60s, a lot of them will know my dad or my uncle or something like that. So, I grew up around the game a lot, so there was never, this distinction between women's and men's basketball. It was just basketball. And I would see people like Lisa Leslie. She would be on TV and see her at the BET Awards and things like that. So Candace Parker was another one. I would just see her often. So even though I would see those figures, you wouldn't see them in things like video games that often. So I think it was 2006 or 2007, there was a video game. It was NBA Street Home Court. And they had, I think, 4 women's basketball players in there. And Diana Taurasi was one of them. And I instantly just gravitated towards her. And from that moment on, I was like, okay, I'm a fan of Diana. And she kind of drew me into the league and towards the Mercury. So since then, was like, this is my team. I'm supporting her. But the game wasn't as accessible as it is now. So actually, the person who really drew me in to watching more, and as the game became more visible, was actually, and I think you talked about it on the pod before, is Elena Deladon. Seeing her come up through high school, she was at UConn for a hot second, but never really played there, and then went to University of Delaware. So watching her journey, and the game kind of exploded when she came out of college. And the same year that she came out, Brittany Griner and Skylar Diggins came out as well. So the Mercury it was kind of hot. You had Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner. So from that point, thinking 2013 onward was kind of really my Mercury coming out of being a fan party.
Nice. Nice. So you got 10 years of good following.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Kris is a fellow Blue Hen
Yes,
with us,
go
so
Hens.
so I don't know
Blue
if
Hens, baby.
anyone talks about Elena Deladon as much as we do, but
She's very good. She's very good at basketball. We're just unfortunately not able to watch her this season.
Right.
But it's okay.
no, that's awesome, Kris.
Hopefully she'll be back.
Hopefully.
Oh yes, fingers crossed. I do want to say, since not knowing much about the league before this season, kind of everything I've seen a lot of negative talk about Diana Taurasi. And when we were watching her this week, I was like, whoa, she's really still really good. This is her 20th season. I was like, she can pass, she can shoot. Maybe it's just because people, wish she was on their team, a LeBron situation. But I think it's cool that you saw her so long ago and stuck with her, and she's still in the league. And hearing positive things that feeds me.
Yeah, I do think, like, do we know what like, you may know better than us what the reason is. Like, why is everybody so chippy about DT? Like, what is it? Is it just about her personality, or is it just kind of the way they hate LeBron? Similar vibe? Like, what's the deal with that?
Yeah, it's kind of similar. I mean, she's a lot like Kobe Bryant in a lot of ways, and that is why he dubbed her the White Mamba.
Yes.
And her persona, it's, if you're not on her team, she's coming for you when you're out there. So Diana Taurasi can be very chippy. She can be very aggressive. So that is part of it. The league has also really propped her up and positioned her to be the GOAT. And a lot of people have some dissonance with that because there are a lot of great players that have come through in the history. Diana, of course, has a great case. She's the all-time leading scorer. She has revolutionized the game, very visible. But there are a lot of great players that have come throughout the years that it would be remiss to not have them in the conversation. So I think that has caused a lot of dissonance throughout the years. And it doesn't help that she went to UConn. UConn has been like the powerhouse of women's basketball for the last couple decades. Shout out to our Philly guy, Gino Ariema. But it is, it's, so that leads to some of the dissonance there. It's like the same issue with Caitlin Clark, as people feel like she's being marketed more than other players that are comparable. Diana kind of had the same issue, and they feel like she's not letting the new guard come in. So the fact that she's still been on Olympic teams and not letting people have some of those spots, people have had a lot of issues with that. And her temperament when she loses, there's an infamous situation after the last time she was in the finals where she punched a door and broke it off the hinges. So if you ever see that meme, that's what it's about.
Okay, I'll have to
So
look that
it's her personality.
Okay.
But that's a part of the game. So it is very similar to like a LeBron, Kobe hate. People hate greatness. So everybody's gonna get hate.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about this season, your outlook. Well, I think let's start with last season. So what were the things that went wrong last season? Because they had the worst record in the league. They didn't have their pick. So, like, obviously they weren't intending to lose. If I'm not mistaken, it was mostly injury based. But, like, were there other things going on?
Yeah, so ever since the situation with Brittany Garner being detained in Russia, the team was definitely a lot different. That was a big centerpiece of the team. And, of course, they were ravaged by injuries as well. There was also a situation where the coach for the New York Liberty, Sandy Brondello, was their head coach, and they got rid of Sandy. And they had a new coach come in, Vanessa Nygaard, I think is her name, and it did not go well, which led to some issues with some of the members on the team. Most notably Skylar Diggins and Tina Charles, and led to some, not pleasant exits. So the team had a lot of those issues as well as injuries, so just not a lot of players available. And it kind of reminded me of the Process Sixers last year, where they just – it's sad to say this, but I was like with one of my good friends who's also a Merc supporter, rooting for them to lose because I wanted as good a draft pick as possible because I knew how good this draft was. And we had a pick. We had, I think, the number 3 or number 4 pick, and I believe we traded it to the Sparks. I believe it was the Sparks. Don't quote me on that. I might need a heat check. We traded it away. And I was upset at first, but the offseason moves that we made led us to, having Kalia Copper coming in, Beck Allen, Kalia Copper, North Philly, Natasha Cloud, also Delco native. I actually found out she went to high school with my sister, which is crazy.
Wow, no way.
It graduated the same year. It's nuts. But so last year was rough, but I was kind of rooting for the failure because I thought we needed to rebuild and I wanted some fresh blood in. I wasn't really on board with having more veterans come in because I know how this can tend to go. Veterans, you are very dependent on their health. So far, so good, but we shall see. But, yeah, that was the story last year. A lot of off-season issues and injuries kind of derailed them. And an interim coach.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there is a new coach this year, Nate Tibbetts. Did you know anything about him beforehand, or how are you feeling about him now?
I knew nothing about
Okay.
Nate Tibbetts coming into the season, but I've been very impressed. He has won me over already. I think he was the right person for the job. I wanted Teresa Witherspoon. I just think the way she leads people, the way she motivates, I mean, her experience in the NBA as well, I thought she would have been a great person to kind of turn the tide after what we've been through the last couple years. But Nate's done a great job so far. I haven't seen the vibes on this team be this good in a long time, so I'm impressed so far. But it's a long summer, so we'll see where they end up.
Yeah, yeah. I think they said on the broadcast, going through the games from this week, that you went win-win-loss. And in that second win, they said it was the first time that the Mercury had won 3 games since June of 22. So it's been a long time since they had even a small winning streak. So any amount of winning streak, that's good stuff. But I was very impressed from what I saw, and given the situation now with BG having a broken toe and basically the team playing without a center, like, it's crazy the way that they're able to play basically 5-out ball and just shoot and shoot and shoot, and they're making a ton of threes, which that's a brand of basketball. I know people have their opinions about the 3-ball. I like to watch it. I like to see hot shooters. The Mercury's full of a bunch of really good shooters, and they're making it work. And someone like Natasha Mack, who's 6'3", but has to play center, she's winning all the jump balls. It's crazy. Like, she's awesome.
They always say it's not about the size, it's about who's the first off the floor, and she gets off the floor.
At big time.
No, I've been impressed. I've been really impressed so far. Kalia Copper has been even better than advertised. She's been sensational.
She was awesome to watch. She was so fun.
Yeah, they're saying that could be, a top of the MVP ballot type of player. Definitely showing it. She had, a little, some like ticky-tack injury type of things that she was dealing with in a game or two, but she looked good to me. She's the second leading scorer in the league. She just knows how to take care of business, it seems. Let's see. So then what do you make of your overall outlook with the retooling, with Copper, with Beck Allen, you said, with some of these, with Natasha Cloud, what do you look at this season kind of being for the Mercury? Do you feel like they're going to have a top 4 finish, or you think they're like a lock to make the playoffs this year? Like, how do you feel? Are you cautiously optimistic, or you think they got a chance to do some damage?
That is my favorite phrase. I use that often. Cautious optimism. And I think that's a great way to put this, because, like I said, with players that are, not calling anybody old, because 30 years old is not old, but players as they're getting, older in age in their careers, health is always a question mark. So you don't know who's going to be available, especially with the Olympics. If any players are playing, I'm just questioning, their durability throughout the season. But if Brittany Griner is able to come back, I think this team has the chance to compete night in and night out with just about anybody on any given night. I don't know if I foresee them, making it to the finals or anything like that. But I think this team at its best can compete, and I think they should be in the playoffs. I think it would be a disappointment if they didn't, and they would really have to reevaluate the roster next year and maybe do some big turnover again if they don't, because that would be a failure. So this team at this point, I think, should make the postseason.
Nice. Now, I think compared to some other teams we've seen, they definitely have potential. They definitely, when they get going, they can get really hot streaks. I think that was a huge thing in the first 2 games this week against the Aces and against the Mystic. They started so hot, and it really set the pace of the game. So I think, when they get on that roll, Sophie Cunningham, her threes, Kalia Copper's threes,
Come on.
that they are just falling, and that was awesome. I think once BG comes back, I think we need to have another week of being a Mercury fan, because I feel like I just feel like she would change how they play so much. Having more rim defense, having more rebounds. We have, John kind of explained to me like watch how all the players, they're just kind of standing around the 3-point line and trying to make threes, because none of them are too big to get, to the rim. So once she comes back, I gotta watch them again, because I'm also just, everything I see about her, I'm like, wow, she seems like such a kind, sweet, like amazing person.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I agree with that point, because like when BG comes back, even if BG isn't like at peak performance, the gravity of BG being there will pull other people towards BG and like opening up lanes for other players. And I'm curious to see what they look like, because I think it would just help the team. If you have Mac coming off the bench with a Sophie Cunningham now they have depth that they haven't had in a long time. And I think some of their bench players getting to be in the rotation right now is super helpful for them. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it could be fun, but still cautiously optimistic. That is the word of the day.
Yeah, definitely not a bad way to be. That was basically because the first game we watched this week, they beat the Aces, and they handled them pretty well, and I found myself wondering if that was like just hot shooting or if that was like legit. And we just said, you can't really know what the team is going to be without Griner. But if they went really deep, and it's good to just let these players get reps, because otherwise they might not have the opportunity. So if they know how they can use some of their deeper bench players later on in the season, that's definitely going to be a good thing. Yeah. So
yeah.
Okay. So we feel good about the Mercury this year. We feel like they could be interesting
So far.
I think something I haven't asked. Have you had the chance to see the Mercury live? Have you been out to a game in New York or maybe like Connecticut, or did you go over to Phoenix and see them play?
So I have never been able to go to a Mercury game, and actually I'm planning on going to one this year. And the reason why is every time it feels like that they play in Washington or in New York, it is on the most odd day of the week. And I don't know about anybody else, but driving 2 to 3 hours on a Tuesday night is like, it's hard, especially when you work. I feel like every time they're in town, it's always on an odd day of the week. And this year, when they come to Washington, the one game they play there, it's on a Tuesday at 11:30 a.m.
What?
I don't understand why they always get the most odd scheduling.
Wow.
But I decided I'm going to take the day off of work and just go.
Yeah.
But every time it's something funky like that. But I'm looking forward to going. My friend Destiny, I wanted to give her a shout out. She actually's been a season ticket holder with her dad for the Mercury. They've been season ticket holders for years. Nice. So she always sends me pictures from all the games. So I live vicariously through her experience, but have yet to get to go yet. So I'm looking forward to that.
Nice.
Yeah, that is really weird. I haven't seen any games in the mornings yet.
Yeah, 11:30.
Yeah.
So you can be an in-person member of the X Factor. I love that they keep referring to the fan base as the X Factor. And I gotta say,
shout out to Cheryl Miller.
That's right. We love what they're doing with the uniforms. We got to see their Rebel jerseys in that third game. Love the way they look. Obviously, we've always liked the way the Phoenix Suns design their jerseys, and this is very similar to that. The Valley jerseys, but just the way the court looks, jerseys look, the atmosphere seems to be like a very strong, like a very real feeling. Like when you watch the games, I was like, nothing feels different about this than watching just like any other NBA game. Like the vibe was perfect to me. I was like, oh, they know what they're doing here. Like they've got such a strong backing that this is legit. So love to see that. Love to see that, because some of the different teams that we've watched early on, you're like, oh, that's obviously a college stadium, or the camera's like kind of weirdly zoomed out, or the lighting's weird, but like everything's super professional about Phoenix.
And Phoenix has had like good crowds for several years, so it's been cool. They've always been like kind of ahead of the curve in a lot of ways. So I think since the Aces have been in Vegas, they've also drawn like a pretty consistent crowd too. So it's been cool to now see some of the other teams like now get this like swelling of a big supporting crowd more consistently, like they deserve. But yeah, that's been one of the fun things about watching the Mercury is I feel like they've had a great sense of engagement from their crowds since the inception. I feel the same way about the Liberty. Ever since they moved to Barclays, I felt like they've had a great crowd too. So
Yeah,
it's awesome to see the W continue to like grow in its intensity.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to briefly talk about the last game of the week versus the Wings. I think the biggest, storyline of that game was Kalia Copper and Arike Agumbawale trying to battle it out for who was going to be, the top scorer, average points per game, since Kalia was first and Arike was right behind her at second. And it seemed like, they just couldn't really get into a groove in that game. They were losing by 22 points in the third quarter, in the second quarter. Now, beginning of the third quarter. But they did really battle it out in the third and, got it back to being pretty close, but ultimately lost the game. And I don't know if I'm putting my coaching helmet on, not that I'm a coach, but I don't know if, kind of the strategy of that game was keep giving Copper the ball so she can keep that, number one spot over Arike. But I just feel like my mindset watching that game was Sophie was so hot in the second game. Give her more threes. Like, why isn't she shooting? That was how I was, thinking about the game, because every time I'm like, Sophie's passing the ball again. Sophie, isn't shooting. But in that game, Copper hit her 3,000 career points, which was really awesome. And she's the only player so far this year with 3 30-point games. So even though she did fall to the second place behind Arike in average points per game, she still is keeping those top scoring, stats.
Yeah, I think that's been one of my issues with the Merc so far. It feels like that it's been Kalia Copper or bust too much. So I do think they need to figure out what the offense looks like when Ka is not in the game. When she's in there, she's incredible, and you want to feed her the ball every time, but you can't do that consistently for the entire course of the game. It just doesn't work that way. And I feel like they have the offensive players to do it, but I still think everybody's finding their footing and their place. It just seems like she just came in and she found her place right away. And I think the rest of the team is still adjusting. And then like with Sophie like went from being second round pick, barely in the rotation, to working her way to being a starter, and now she's like back on the bench. So like I guess everybody's still adjusting, figuring out a new role, new position. So you hit the nail on the head. That comes down to coaching, is like figuring that out. Kind of like a good problem to have when you have so many players that can get their own shot. But it has been fun to watch the Kalia Copper show so far. But hopefully when BG comes back, I feel like, the team may progress a little bit better. But thank you for shouting out Sophie Cunningham. She's gotten a lot of flack over the last few years. Okay. But I love watching her play basketball. I know people might hate me for that, but I enjoy watching her play basketball.
Oh, we enjoyed it. I didn't know she was getting flack.
I was like, man, I was like, Sophie, wide open, bang. bang, bang. Every shot, I was like, what? I was like, she's got to be making 50% of her threes. I think she's shooting like 44, 45%, but last year she was shooting 33. So I understand that would make sense why she might get some flack, but she's got great form. She's knocking them down. I would just hope that, she gets the opportunity she deserves then if she's scoring them some points.
Mm-hmm.
People think she's a kind of like a dirty player.
Oh,
I can see it.
So when they played the Sky, I think in the final a few years back, there was like an infamous like battle between her and Kalia Copper actually.
Oh.
And there's like a famous image where Kalia's like kind of like towering over Sophie as she's like on the ground, and that was like a big meme for a while. So now it's funny that they're teammates and everybody's like, oh, I guess if anybody can get along, it's like, hell's frozen over. But so her reputation like since then has like people have always like been like, oh, she's a dirty player, but
Okay.
when they're on your team, I think you enjoy them.
Yeah. Now I can definitely see why people would say that. I think the last game of the week, she wasn't shooting as much, but she was definitely trying to get some fouls and push people around. So I could see it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been awesome. I love learning, especially love learning about like a couple years back, like meme stuff. I don't know the meme stuff. I never see. I gotta look up this Tarasi Door thing. I gotta find it. But this is what we do when we wind down here. We want to give our guests the opportunity to sell their team. So, Kris, I would love it to know why would you tell somebody to become a fan of your Phoenix Mercury?
Ooh, that is a great question. I'm going to start kind of broad. I feel like everyone is welcome in the WNBA. There's something for everyone, especially if you're a basketball fan. There's whatever you like, there's something of that here. The game is exciting. The players have a lot of personality, and it's growing, and I'm excited to see more people in on it. The Phoenix Mercury have a great history, a great tradition, great fan base, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful jerseys. I can't say that enough. Chef's kiss. And it is great to watch the all-time leading scorer in the WNBA still play effectively. So I can't tell you which team to root for, but if you did root for the Mercury, it is a wild ride, but it's a very fun time. So come check us out. 10 p.m. game, East Coast time a lot of the times, but if you're able to, it is very fun, very enjoyable, and you're going to see a lot of three-point shots taken. A lot. So come check us out. X Factor, baby.
Nice. And hey, the 10 p.m. games are hard for us, but we've just been watching them the next day on League Pass. No commercials.
Yeah, no commercials.
It's awesome.
It is great. I mean, you don't get the live factor. You can say, I see that they won or they lost. But
no, it's great.
Look, you just gotta get your daily dose of hoops. It's one way or another. And if it's after 10 p.m., it's okay.
And can I give a quick shout out really quick?
Yeah.
If you are in the Philadelphia area or anywhere in the Mid-Atlantic region, I just want to shout out that just like the WNBA is growing, the NWSL, which is the Women's Soccer League, is also growing. And they are going to have some exhibition games in Philadelphia and in Richmond, Virginia coming up in July. So if you are able to come and support women's sports, I would encourage you to do so. There's some great teams, great athletes there as well. And there's a lot of crossover between the two leagues and supporting each other. So just want to give a quick shout out to the NWSL as well. Go Spirit. Okay.
Yeah, man.
All
right. I would be silly to ask because, we know you're a Philadelphia sports fan. What do you think about the possibility of expansion into Philly? Do you feel good about it? Do you not feel good about it? Like, what do you think? Fingers crossed?
I mean, fingers crossed. So I love the Mercury, but I will drop y'all like a bad habit once we get a Philly team. So
okay.
I just want to say that, Mercury, it's been great knowing you, but no, I think Philly's coming. I think Philly is coming because I did not see Toronto or Golden State coming, and when Kathy Engelberg says they're talking, and Philly's one of the first places she mentions. I think she's serious about it. So I don't know if they'll be in the next round of expansions, but I think within the next decade we will see something. And the press conference for Toronto got me really excited because there are great people working in organizations already in the NBA and beyond that do have a passion for this and would be willing to be a part of something cool like that. And I feel like just putting pressure on some of the celebrities out there. Yeah. Looking at you, Michael Rubens, Meek Mills, Will Smith, all these people from the Philly area. We need you. We need you. And the Philly area deserves a team, and we will get one. So I think it's coming. I'm speaking it into existence.
Yes, manifest it.
And my pitch is for the Philadelphia Sound. I know some people have the Philly Bells. Somebody put out a concept a few years ago with some jerseys, and the name was the Philly Sound to honor the sound of Philadelphia music history, which I thought was really cool to honor the Black history, music, and the city itself. So I'm putting a pitch out for the Philly Sound if we become
Philly
a team.
Sound.
Okay. Love it.
I like the way it sounds. No pun intended. No pun intended. Well, Kris, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on to talk Mercury. Do you have any last things you want to shout out? Like anything that you're into? You feel free to, you boosted the NWSL. If you got anything else, feel free.
Or plug your
social medias. Go ahead.
Well, first off, I just want to thank you both for having me on. It's been a blast. Once again, I've been enjoying the podcast a lot, so I hope that this didn't tank the ratings here, having me on this episode. No. But I've been really enjoying it. If you want to catch me on social media, I'm at Cali_Dream11. That's Cali with a K. But thank you guys for having me. I really enjoyed this. And support women's sports. We're on the rise, baby.
Yes, thank you so much, Kris.
Thank you, Kris. And we're back from that lovely conversation with our friend Kris. Learned a lot about the Mercury. Had a lot of fun being a member of the X Factor this week. Love those jerseys. Love that logo. Love the atmosphere that we see on the TV. Don't love having to watch the games at 10 p.m. on the East Coast, but it's okay.
We're literally not doing that.
But there was one game where we said, let's watch the first half before we go to bed.
And then we had to rewatch it the next day because I could not focus.
We might as well have just watched the replay anyway. But still, great time with the Mercury. Looking forward to next week. We've got a little Indiana Fever talk, which is exciting. We're gonna get boots on the ground reporting from an Indiana game. Not live. We're not live. We're not going to get the audio. But we have a new fan of the Indiana Fever who lives in Indiana, and he'll be visiting to watch his second Fever game on the 28th. We're recording that literally tomorrow. So exciting to hear about that. We're going to talk all about Caitlin Clark a little bit more, but some of the other players that we don't talk about. Aaliyah Boston, we haven't talked about a ton. We got to talk about some players other than Caitlin.
I know. I haven't even, as much as we talked about Aaliyah Boston in our first couple episodes, I have not watched her at all.
No.
This year.
Erica Wheeler, Temi Fagbenle. We got other people to talk about. But that'll be next week. If you enjoyed this week's episode and you want to reach out and tell us about it, or if you have a comment about your team and how they're doing, send us an email, attackthebaseline@gmail.com. And this is a great week. Mm-hmm. Week 3 coming up on deck. More hoops. Let's enjoy it.
Attack it.
I didn't say. I saw the baseline. Now I'm going to attack it. Thank you for listening, folks. As always, we love you, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.